This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash and Team Valor. A few weeks have passed since the battle aboard the final fortress, and during that time Metal has wandered and pondered, his mind on one question: how can he move on from what he has done as the Metal Commander? For even though Amy had charitably claimed that he and the Commander are different entities, Metal knows better, since Eggman didn't have to add anything that wasn't already there to make him into that monster. He just had to take away his bonds, and the hatred that had turned him against his creator. Two seemingly minor tweaks were all it had taken, and even now he still feels the Metal Commander's instincts urging him to be cruel and power-hungry. If this is who he truly is, how can he face his friends again? This thought has kept the Bluebot in self-imposed exile, though thankfully, nothing has arisen which had required his help, with the most notable occurrence being an impromptu meteor shower, when someone, presumably Shadow, used the Eclipse cannon to blow up a large black comet that was making its way towards Earth. However, this all changes one evening while Metal is making his way through Holy Summit, as he picks up something strange on his Chaos Emerald radar. One of the emeralds is transmuting into something else, something new. Recognizing the source of this strange reading is not too far from here, the android sets off to investigate, having a hunch that whatever caused a Chaos Emerald to suddenly change cannot be a good thing. Tracking the signal to its source, Metal is distinctly unsurprised to find a small building designed in the likeness of Dr. Eggman's face, though there is one odd aspect to it. The door is ajar, which suggests he is not the first to be drawn to this anomalous activity, as for all his faults, the Doctor is not careless when it comes to security. Creeping inside, the Bluebot recognizes two familiar faces, Rouge and Shadow, seemingly caught up in heated discussion in front of a model of robot he's never seen before, and so descends to join them, just in time to learn that this machine is known as a gizoid, which shares the designation of ultimate life form with Shadow. Tersely, the black and red hedgehog expresses intent to destroy the gizoid, though having not forgotten his purpose in the midst of his inner turmoil, Metal refuses to allow this, stating that it is unnecessary, as he can take the robot, thus removing it from Eggman's clutches. However, this is not what Shadow is concerned about, explaining that the gizoid is a weapon of mass destruction, so the only way to ensure it does not cause catastrophic damage is to see it destroyed. Coolly, Rouge questions if this was in the same line of thinking that resulted in the Ark being raided, and him being placed in suspended animation for 50 years, an assertion which makes Shadow scowl, while with determination in his green eyes, Metal steps between the gizoid and the hedgehog, his fist raised in a clear sign that he will fight to defend his fellow android if the need arises. Scowl only deepening, Shadow asks what Metal intends to do with the gizoid if he lets him have it, to which the fastest machine in existence replies that he will attempt to rid it of any pre-existing malevolent programming, so that it may live freely, instead of being forced to exist as a weapon. Having seen this work firsthand, both through himself and Metal, Shadow cannot deny there is a chance the Bluebot might be able to save this new android, and so agrees not to kill the gizoid right this moment, though he does insist on tagging along with the pair of machines, warning that if this thing turns out to be as dangerous as he suspects, he will not hesitate to dispatch it before it can threaten the planet. Before Metal can reply, however, something comes along to draw everyone's attention, that being a horde of steely grey guard robots, who begin opening fire on the trio with their shoulder-mounted cannons, having evidently been activated when the heroes tripped the base's security system. Knowing they are hardly in the best position to fight while trying to protect the gizoid, the three interlopers decide to make a hasty retreat, with Metal taking his new charge by the hand and ordering it to follow him as he begins to run. This at last causes the gizoid to activate, as it obediently keeps pace with the Bluebot, showing no trouble at matching his impressive speeds, as the now group of four burst out of the subterranean base and make their way up the street and into Club Rouge. Thankfully, due to the time, the club is deserted, with the Bat telling her guest to get upstairs and lie low, since she has a feeling Eggman's going to come looking for them now that they've stolen his gizoid. Curiously, Metal asks what she intends to do, with Rouge explaining that she's going to go do some digging and see what she can learn about this gizoid from her government contacts, since considering all the cloak and daggers surrounding Project Shadow, there's no way they haven't been keeping tabs on a second ultimate life form. Nodding his understanding, Metal does as he's bid, taking the gizoid with him, while Shadow wordlessly follows, his eyes still watching the beige bot with suspicion. Once they are settled in a small storage room, Metal attempts to speak with the gizoid, asking it its name, as well as any other details about itself that it might be able to provide. Unfortunately, here it proves most unhelpful, not because it is uncooperative, but because it appears to have trouble forming complete sentences, giving only garbled responses about not representing or becoming something. Recognizing this as a dead end, Metal instead turns his focus to analyzing the gizoid, since he can still sense that anomalous Chaos Emerald signature inside it, almost like it has become the Emerald, or rather, the Emerald has become become it. Since Shadow doesn't much care beyond his belief that this thing is dangerous, Metal instead shares this finding with Rouge when she returns the following afternoon, believing it to be logical that they should exchange data to get the most complete understanding of what the gizoid is and how it functions. Coyly, Rouge teases that it's cute the way Metal is like a proud father, telling anyone who will listen about his kid, though she is able to provide some insight into why the beige robot is the way it is, stating that it is powered by Chaos Emeralds, with its system being designed to integrate all of them, so if he wants the gizoid to develop beyond its current garbled and mostly inert state, he's going to need to get it some more emeralds. Suspiciously, Shadow asks why she's telling them this, since he'd have thought she'd be against such a plan, seeing as how if the gizoid absorbs the Chaos Emeralds, then she can't have them. But with a smirk, she tells the hedgehog not to be so distrustful, reminding them that they are on the same side after all. Judging from the slight narrowing of his eyes, Shadow does not buy this altruistic explanation, and so letting out a sigh, Rouge concedes that she would like to use its knowledge from 4,000 years ago to locate a bunch of ancient jewels and treasures, though she can't do that until it has all 7 Chaos Emeralds, since right now, it has formed something called a link with Metal, meaning it only listens to him. This explains why it ran when he commanded it to, though all the same, Metal asks if there is a way to break this link, as he does not want to be the gizoid's master. He wants it to be free, with Rouge grinning that this is what she's trying to tell him. The way to free, or as her research calls it, awaken the gizoid is simple. He just needs to have it absorb all 7 Chaos Emeralds, then give it one final command as its master: bring hope to humanity. If he does that, it will be a completely independent entity who will never have to serve anyone ever again. This makes matters much simpler for Metal, as now he has a clear goal again, and so thanks Rouge for her help, for telling the gizoid and Shadow to follow him, as with his radar, he can track down the other emeralds quite quickly. However, here Rouge stops the blue bot, stating that he really is just like Sonic, and before he goes rushing off, there are 2 things they need to talk about. The first of which is giving that gizoid a name, since they can't just go around calling it the gizoid. Accepting the bat's point, Metal queries if she has any in mind, with Rouge rattling off a few, including Shard, Bug Eyes, and Emerl, the last of which actually causes the gizoid to turn its head, as if responding to the name. Taking this as a signal from the mostly non-verbal bot, Metal agrees to begin addressing his beige-coloured charge as Emerl, a courtesy Shadow makes no attempt to extend, as he instead asks what the other matter is Rouge wanted to discuss. Frowning a little at his blunt manner, Rouge replies that lately she's been doing the other 3 a lot of favours, letting them stay here and telling them what she knows about Emerl, so it's high time they start paying her back. Scoffing slightly, Shadow states that he knew it would be something like that, asking what happened to them being on the same side, though in contrast, Metal calls this quid pro quo a logical exchange, asking what she has in mind. Evidently pleased with this response, Rouge replies that she has a job in mind they can do for her, which is perfectly suited for a pair of muscleheads. Someone's been robbing jewelry stores, and she wants the guys to put a stop to it, since if this other thief steals all the good stuff, there'll be nothing left for her. Not even dignifying this selfish motive with a response, Shadow rises to his feet, beckoning with his head for Metal to follow, and giving a nod the blue bot does so, meaning Emerl also comes along due to their link. At Rouge's instruction, the trio head for a jewelry store in another part of Central City, which according to Metal's radar also houses a Chaos Emerald, meaning this excursion is mutually beneficial. In fact, there are 4 signals emanating from that store, one which is clearly a Chaos Emerald, while the other 3 are weaker, only emitting 1/5 of the Chaos energy the other emerald is. This makes no sense, as to Metal's knowledge, a Chaos Emerald's power cannot be divided, though the answer becomes all too clear when they arrive, finding Eggman floating in his Eggmobile, while 3 gunmetal grey Emerald lookalikes pillage the shop. Upon spotting the heroes, Eggman mockingly greets them, asking how they like his newest creation, the E1215s, though Metal is in no mood for banter with the man who defiled and tormented him for over a year, leaping into the air and delivering a powerful flying kick to the Eggmobile, courtesy of Rouge's life data. This brutal attack leaves the Doctor in something of a panic, as it reminds him not only why he wanted Metal back on his side, but also why he should be concerned now that he is an enemy again, with him ordering his fires to take care of their outdead predecessor. However, before the trio can lay a finger on Metal, a new warrior enters the fray, that being Shadow, as he uses short-range Chaos Control teleport to appear in front of the blue bot, telling him to focus on Eggman while he handles the spares. Nodding, Metal resumes his onslaught against his now panicked creator, employing several of the techniques the Metal Commander stole from his friends, while Shadow unleashes a volley of Chaos Spears, which prove quite effective in keeping the fires at bay. However, despite being based on the rather simple-looking Emerl, these little grey doppelgangers are not without their wiles, as when Shadow begins laying to 2 of them, the third sneaks off and attempts to strike Metal from behind. That is until the real Emerl steps in, or rather, leaps in, as with shocking speed and power, the beige bot perfectly mimics Metal's previous flying kick, driving its foot into its grey counterpart's head, instantly destroying it. For a moment, the battlefield falls silent and still as everyone turns to face Emerl, having not expected that, with Eggman being the first to speak, as he muses that this is the power of the gizoid, a completely empty vessel with infinite potential that can be shaped however its master desires. Truly a perfect replacement for his failed metal commander. Yes, now that he has seen it in action, he must reclaim it. This naturally only infuriates Metal further after all he's been through, with the blue bot warning the Doctor not to try if he wants to live, his green eyes burning with such intense hatred that Eggman decides it's best to retreat until he has a more complete plan of how he will reacquire the gizoid, though not before declaring he'll still get his hands on the other emeralds in the meantime, a maniacal cackle bursting from his lips. When the Doctor is gone, Metal slumps slightly, shame and guilt rising in him, not only for his response to seeing Eggman again, but also how quickly he had drawn on the Metal Commander's power. Meanwhile, using a couple of Chaos Spears, Emerl promptly finishes off the other two fires, though this is not all it does, as when they are defeated, it extracts a fragment of what appears to be a Chaos Emerald from all three of their chests, with Metal at last understanding the weakest signals that were showing up on his radar. Giving the gizoid a wary look after what he's seen it do, Shadow instead speaks to Metal, informing him those will have to be reforged into a whole emerald before Emerl can absorb them, with the android replying that from what he can tell, there are 2 more fragments that they'll need to acquire, though for now, they should focus on giving Emerl the Chaos Emerald Eggman tried and failed to steal here. He then makes his way through the broken glass and jewelry as he collects the aforementioned gem, and offers it to the beige bot, with Emerl briefly laying both hands on the Chaos Emerald before it is seemingly absorbed into him. At first, nothing appears to have changed, though this is proven false when Emerl speaks his first complete sentence.
Thank you, Father.
Truthfully, Metal isn't entirely sure what to think of this, until Shadow proposes that the gizoid must have heard Rouge calling him a proud father, and registered that as his title, concluding that it's better than Master at least. Metal does not object, telling Emerl that he is welcome, and even laying a hand on his shoulder, a gesture the beige bot immediately apes in an infantile manner, which Metal cannot help but find oddly endearing. Nonetheless, now is hardly the time to be slowing down, as with Eggman also on the hunt for Chaos Emeralds, the trio know that they have to move quickly. Thankfully, there are 2 in close proximity, with the closer being located in the neighbouring Emerald Town. Making their way over, Metal and his team find that this too is a jewelry shop, though not one which has been ransacked, with this giving the android hope that it will be a simple monetary transaction. Unfortunately, nothing could be further from the truth, as having heard about robots attacking stores on the news, the shopkeeper immediately grows hostile upon seeing Metal and Emerl, even throwing an empty soda can at the blue bot, as he orders him to get out or else. This is precisely the wrong thing to do, as being too immature to comprehend the motivation behind this action, Emerl simply mimics what he has seen his father do when confronted with Eggman's aggression, which is to attack without restraint. Leaping onto the counter, the beige bot begins raining Chaos Spears down on the shopkeeper, with Metal himself having to step in and stop them with his black shield, or sharply ordering Emerl to desist. Due to their link, he obeys, though it is clear he does not understand why, his face a mix of hurt and confusion as he tries to rationalize why his father would be angry at him when he was only following his example and trying to protect him. Recognizing this in the gizoid's eyes, Metal reminds himself of what Eggman had said about Emerl being a completely empty vessel, almost like a newborn child, internalizing whatever it sees. If that is the case, then he has already done so much wrong, with this entire encounter being his fault, and yet another thing he is uncertain how to make amends for. Hoping he can start by checking on the shopkeeper to see if they're alright, he turns to face them, though as their eyes meet, he sees only terror, that same terror he's seen countless times before through the eyes of the Metal Commander. Rising to their feet, the jewelry store owner flees, urging Metal to take whatever he wants so long as it doesn't hurt them, with this only deepening Metal's ennui, and as he looks between their retreating figure and that of Emerl who still appears confused and stung, he wonders not for the first time whether it would have been better for all concerned if he had simply stayed broken after the Ark incident. Seeing something of this in the android's green eyes, Shadow pulls Metal aside as he firmly tells him to pull himself together, stating now is hardly the time for long introspections, as they are still in a race against the Doctor. Though Metal does not object, it is plain to see that this is not the same as agreement, with this earning a deep sigh from Shadow, as he admits that he understands what the android is thinking and feeling. There are times he wishes he was never created as well, since if he hadn't been, his closest friend wouldn't have been murdered by gun operatives, and countless other people including Metal himself wouldn't have been hurt during his misguided quest for vengeance. However, if he lets himself fall to pieces, or worse, if he were to throw in the towel, nothing would get better, and it would make Maria's death and the suffering of everyone else who has been negatively impacted by him completely pointless. No, there's only one way to make things right, and that's to keep moving forward no matter how much it hurts, until they've done enough good to make up for all the bad their existence has brought into the world. Recognizing the truth of these words, Metal thanks Shadow, though his eyes are on Emerl, a true innocent, and one he can still help, part of which involves setting a better example than he has so far. Stepping away from the black and red hedgehog, the blue bot then offers Emerl the third Chaos Emerald from inside a display case, with the gizoid gratefully taking it and absorbing it into himself like the previous one. Though there is no overt physical change once again, Metal does notice one slight difference, with that being the way Emerl carries himself, as it now bears a greater resemblance to Metal's own stance and gait, a simple but touching tribute. Following this, the trio head north towards Holy Summit, where the next Emerald is, with Emerald exhibiting another of his father's traits, as he reveals himself to have an inbuilt Chaos Emerald radar, stating that if they take the most efficient route, they should be able to acquire it in less than an hour. However, it seems this estimation might be slightly off, as partway through the trek, Metal orders a halt to the proceedings, his eyes locked on a figure who stands waiting further up the mountain path, one he knows well, but who cannot possibly be here. Gamma. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.